Today I'm going to show you how I made these snowmen treats. Come join me. One of the first items was this bento box with a snowman and snowflake cupcakes. I also made some 4-packs of snowman cupcakes. So I started off with the cake, so putting together a 4-inch 2-layer cake. So put some buttercream onto my cake board so that my cake doesn't slide around, and then added the first layer of the cake. I filled the cake, and then I'm going to add the next layer. So I added that second layer, and then I'm just going to crumb coat the cake. After crumb coating the cake, I added a second layer to this cake, and then I started working on the decorations that I will add to the top. So for the decorations, I rolled out some white fondant, and I'm going to use a piece of one of my 4-inch pans, because that's how big this cake is. And I'm going to press that into the fondant, which you'll see right here. And I will use some fondant tools, and I'm just going to trace outside of that to cut it out. So this will function as my snowmen that I'll put on top of the cake. I'm also going to work at the same time to do the cupcake toppers. So I'm cutting out some smaller snowmen with a cookie cutter. After I have all of those done, I'm going to roll out some blue fondant, which I will use to make the hats that will go on each one of the snowmen. I'll also be doing some green hats on the snowmen. So again, I am cutting out using that 4-inch cake pan to trace, and then use fondant tool to cut it out, because I don't have a cookie cutter that big. So now again, I'm using that smaller cookie cutter to cut out the pieces for the blue hats. After I have those cut out, I'm going to be using my fondant tool to kind of cut at an arch to that piece that I'm holding right now. I'm going to cut that then to also get the rim of the hat, so you can see how it's starting to come together here. So I will ultimately use some water to attach that band to the hat. Now I do a technique to make that band look knitted, but you'll see that better when I do the green ones. But I start with just kind of making some lines as guides on each one of the bands. Then I use tweezers to pinch in between those lines, and that really creates a knitted look, which you'll see in a little bit. Also notice that with those excess pieces that I cut off of the blue, I made some little balls for on top of the hats. Now that I didn't show the pinching in this one, but you'll see it in the green as I mentioned. But now I'm using some water and just attaching those bands to the hats. And I'm also using some water to attach the balls to the hats. Now I moved on to the green, again cutting out those little sections that I'll use to make the hats. Again, here's where that pinching technique is. So I make the lines, and then I just kind of in between each of the lines that I made, I just pinch right along each other, and that creates the knitted look. And I apologize you don't see that a bit closer, but that's what I do to make a knitted look on the hats. Again, here I am attaching those bands to the hats, and I'll also create those balls and I'll attach those as well. And you'll notice that this is actually in real time, not sped up like most of the videos are. And here I am, I'm just adding some water onto the top of each one of those white circles that I cut out, and I'm attaching those hats to my snowmen. Now I'm moving on to making the noses. So I'm using a little diamond punch out tool for fondant, and then I'm cutting those in half so that I have two triangles with each one that I've cut out. So you can see here, I am rolling out some eyeballs for on each of my snowmen. And once I have those rolled out, I'm going to use some water and I'm going to attach each one of the eyeballs to my snowmen. Now I'm moving on and I'm attaching each of the noses to my snowmen as well. Now I am preparing to create the mouth. So I'm using a fondant tool and just kind of tracing along to create a mouth on each one of the snowmen. So I'm going to move forward. I'm using some pink luster dust. I am going to mix that with some lemon extract, and that will make like a pink paint that I can use on each of the snowmen. So I'm mixing that up right here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of pink onto their cheeks so we have some rosy cheeks on our snowmen. And this is what they look like when they're finished. And now they just need to dry and harden up. So now moving on to my cupcake toppers. This is a snowman cutout, or, I'm sorry, a snowflake cutout. I'm just kind of putting those to the side. Ultimately, I use a punch out tool to then push into each one of these snowflakes because I'm using a cookie cutter without a pattern to show on the face of each of the snowflakes. So I'll use a punch out tool and I'll press it against this so that there's a pattern on each one of the snowflakes, so it's not as plain. And now I'm using some white shimmery luster dust again with some lemon extract, and I'm making a white shimmery paint, and I'm going to use that to paint the snowflakes just so they're a little bit shimmery and not so plain white. So here I am painting those, and you'll be able to see that punched pattern in just a moment. And the whole purpose of this is just to give it a little bit of a shine or a shimmer. And there you go. You can see the pattern in those snowflakes as well. This is what they look like a little bit closer. So now we're going to go back. I'm adding some buttercream to the top of that cake that I had done earlier. And I'm going to add that snowman topper to the top of the cake. Also adding some cupcakes to this bento box. And I'm going to use some blue icing. It's a 1M tip. And I'm just going to do a rosette on each one of these cupcakes. And once that's done, I'm going to add one of those snowflakes, which have been given some time to harden, so you can see that they're sitting on top of each other. So they're nice and hard and can be together. So, and there you have it. That is finished there. So I'm going to the cupcakes now, and I am just putting a white rosette on each of the cupcakes using a 1M tip. And I'm going to do that for each one of these cupcakes. And then lastly, I'm going to take those smaller snowmen that I made. I've given them time to dry so they're harder and they'll hold their shape. So putting one on each one of the cupcakes. And once we have all of those onto the cupcakes, both of these snowmen treats are completed. And I hope that you enjoyed watching how I made each of these. I would love if you would like, comment, and definitely share these out so that we can raise our follow count together. So here's what they look like. And again, thank you so much. And please come again and look for my next set of content. Thank you so much.